Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Neutral News Network. I'm Brian alongside Jake, and we're going to be discussing a viral video that was based upon another viral video that's been going through Facebook Reels and also through TikTok and things of that nature. And the format that we're kind of going to go with tonight, we're going to play the video, allow you guys to listen to what the video creator has to say, and then we're going to pause it when they make a claim or they tell us to look something up, and we're going to look that up. And then Jake and I are going to have a discussion about that. Again, trying to keep it as neutral as possible, and just try and see if we can validate the claims that that individual is making. And yeah, that's kind of going to be the process that we're going to go through this evening. Let us know if you like this format. We are thinking about potentially doing something similar going in the future. Um, yeah, but without further ado, anything else that you wanted to bring up, Jake or Zach, before we get started?
I'm ready to get into it. Let's do it.
All
Full
right.
disclaimer, if the audio is broken, I will fix it, I promise. Fingers crossed.
Okay.
You guys might want to pull up YouTube because I don't think you'll be able to hear it anymore. So,
Okay. That is fine.
so if you want to take a second to do that.
Yep. Now I will say too, um, just so people know,
Do you have the link
just
to
some
the video?
context. Yeah, make sure to post a link to the video in the chat. But
Oh, fuck.
I would say, just for context purposes, this video that we are going to be watching is from an individual responding to a farmer who was a Trump supporter, maybe still is a Trump supporter, saying that he was kind of duped or led astray by Project 2025, and he did not think that it was necessarily going to impact him the way that it currently has. So this individual, after seeing that video, made a response to him, um, giving him more information, trying to inform him more about what he's going through. And that's kind of the avenue that we're going to be viewing this video from. So, yeah.
Okay.
Context.
I think I'm ready when you guys are ready.
Okay. The only thing is I know there will be an audio delay on the YouTube to what we can see. So that'll be one thing. I don't know if there's any way that we can work around that.
Just no, not really.
Okay.
Not without taking a bunch of time, basically.
Got it.
Because I am
Okay.
not a professional.
Yeah, this is still a work in progress. This is a live show. So we're still trying to work out all the bugs and stuff and kinks. But
this is what happens when you decide to do stuff 30 minutes before the show starts.
Yep.
It's all right.
But it'll be a cool.
All right, I'm ready.
I think so.
Whenever you guys are.
All right. So go ahead and let her rip. And we
also,
will,
everybody
I
says
will
in the comments, Project
after
2025,
the
didn't you
video
read
gets a
that? That's
chance
his
to start
platform.
playing, so.
Hey, Skylar, my name's Will Westmoreland, and I'm a farmer down in southwest Missouri. And I just wanted to reach out to you and tell you that I am not an FAFO kind of guy. We probably disagree with each other on everything political, but there's a very specific reason why people are getting upset with you. And I wanted to explain that to you if you'd be willing to listen to an older guy kind of walk you through the process. Now, I'm not an FAFO guy because I know what's going to happen to poor people, the elderly, children, single moms, and over 250 million people every night around the world that go to bed hungry if the American farmer and rancher is run out of business because of Trump's policies. And that's what I want to explain to you tonight if you'll listen to me. I also wanted to let you know I sent you a private message. And if you ever want to get on the phone and you want to talk about the issues that Trump is forwarding that are bad for agriculture, I'd be willing to do that, and I'd be willing to listen to your arguments as well. I also want to let you know that I've been a political consultant for
to catch up.
All right.
Yeah. The delay is like 20, 30 seconds. So basically this individual is from Missouri. He's a farmer as well. And he is talking about Trump's agricultural policies that were portions of Project 2025. And I am actually going to pull some of that up. Project 2025 culture. So let's see here. So I'm wondering, so this is Project 2025 itself. And so this is the Department of Agriculture here. So this is directly from the documentation itself. I will link that in the chat. This is, I mean, Project 2025 is a huge document. So, I mean, there's plenty to go through here. Now, you also have to remember when you're reading this that they are trying to spin this in a very positive light for the most part. So it is very biased towards their viewpoint. But we figure, if we're going to be talking about Project 2025, we want you guys to view the document, as it is without us trying to spin it. Like this is directly from their website. That's how they want to talk about it. But let's just go with this web page here. Investigate Midwest. So farm programs USDA would shrink under Project 2025. So basically, the entire Project 2025 so far has seemed to be a coordinated effort to shrink the federal government, and to try and find ways to cut costs by any means necessary. Um, the problem with that is that a lot of American farmers, I believe, I would have to go find this number, but I believe around 10,000 farmers slash LLCs, like in farming, receive subsidies from the federal government. And basically, a lot of times, the federal government subsidizes like loss prevention. Like, let's say that there's a flood, and you lose all of your crop, or maybe there's a big hailstorm, and like there's obviously like insurance. Oh, what, Jake?
So I got this fact from the USDA in 2021. More than
I'd say that's a very
34%.
reliable source, by the way.
Yeah, more than 34% of U.S. farm households received government payments, totaling $14.3 billion.
Okay, so 34%. And did you say that was
That was
34%?
Of U.S.
2021.
farm households in 2021, yes.
So yeah,
Received
so
government payments.
so just over a third of American farmers received some form of subsidy from the government. And $14.3 billion. If you guys remember last episode, that's practically nothing in terms of like the overall budget of the United States government. So we're talking about, a large sum of money for these farmers, but when you're talking about the grand scheme of the overall federal government, like this is pennies on the dollar in a sense. So a lot of times, American farmers feed the world for the most part. So, whether it's soybeans, corn, I mean, avocados, you name it. I mean, our foodstuffs and our agricultural products go around the nation and around the globe, and we
Do we?
are a. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know the percentage of avocados that are made in America are.
They're mostly from California, but that was just
Okay.
me throwing out a
Okay.
food product. I mean, I know
Right.
it's
No,
it's
I was
probably
like,
corn, wheat, soybeans. Those are probably our
yeah, those
main
are big ones.
three. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't
But
know
yeah,
how many avocados are being distributed.
you know, just for you, Jake, how many tons
grown in the United States.
those are exported from the U.S.? So let's see. Oh wow, the United States imported 1.1 million metric tons of avocados.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't know if they were. I don't know how many people were growing them in the United
Yeah.
States.
Um,
I knew we were getting them from other countries, but
so we export only about $130 million worth, which was 2% of the global um, total. And
Mm.
I, I mean, for anybody who's looking at this at home, the Netherlands is second.
Wow, that's kind of interesting. Sorry, the avocado market is very interesting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Another episode.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I mean, that kind of summarizes that first little clip of the video that we saw. I mean, individual Missouri, he is a farmer as well. Obviously, he goes into Project 2025 being negative overall, the overall farmers group. I mean, you can see here, this is an article from, I mean, you can kind of read these taglines, and we encourage you, like if you're Googling this, to kind of get a wide variety. We also use, I know we use Ground News for a lot of our stuff, but I know I use Media Bias Fact Check. And this is a good website, good resource to use. So like, I don't know if the one that we searched from here, like Investigate Midwest. So what you can do is you can look for Investigate Midwest and see if they're in here. They're
Uh,
probably not, but oh, go ahead.
is I recently I forget who told me, but Snopes is that a reliable fact check source?
Um, I think it partially is. I don't think it's like the best, but I think that it
Okay,
can be used with some credibility. I think it's kind of one of those, like, you can use it to start, but you should probably do a little bit more
a little bit
digging.
more digging. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
But yeah, so you can see there's nothing here like for a direct link to that website that we used. But like, for instance, let's just type in one that we know, or yeah, let's just type in CNN. They should pop up pretty easily, and they should have a left center bias. Takes a little bit to search on my ancient internet. But yeah, so right here you can see CNN left center bias. So you can click here and you can see where they align, mostly factual, mixed. Like, you can see their factual reporting, see their credibility. All this stuff is, and again, this is all free to access. Again, I love um, using this mostly because it gives you a chance to understand where this information is coming from, potentially who's funding the information, like who owns it, who's the CEO, what's the bias. I mean, yes, there's going to be ads. Oh, there you go. Never see this message again. Bye. Um, but yeah, so you can use this to kind of see, like, when you're looking at information, is it the good stuff? Like,
Eh,
and you can see here the bias category all through
Yeah,
here.
and make sure when you're looking at it, look at all parts of it, not just the one that fits your
Narrative the most.
confirmation bias.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's got a narrative for everything, you know. All right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have another little blip of silence here, but if you want to go ahead and get the video started back up again, Zachary, we will go back to that.
Over 30 years. I want to be right up front about that. I do that in addition to farming. And I want you to know, a lot of younger people don't know, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, but more of an educational way. A lot of younger people don't know that right-wing talk radio and news, the pundits, the talking heads, and right-wing talk radio, etc., have been working for over 40 years to develop in rural people exactly the kinds of ideas that you have in your head, that all politicians are crooks, that they're all the same, that you can't trust traditional media, that anything you hear that comes out of Washington, D.C. or New York or the New York Times or CBS News, that it's all a lie. And they did this on purpose, and they started with Ronald Reagan. We used to have what's called a fairness doctrine in this country, where if you were a radio station or a television station and you were using the public airwaves to present a message, we had a fairness doctrine where you were required by law to share the other side of the story. And President Ronald Reagan, who was president when I was in high
All right,
school
let's
and
go
a
ahead
little
and
bit
pause it
younger
there.
than that.
So, he brought up that he was a political correspondent. Obviously, that has some weight to this because he's either been involved with politics or he's talked to individuals who've been involved with politics. So I'm sure he's got some bias, and by what I can tell, is left leaning. Um, and you know, I think we need to look up this fairness doctrine that he's talking about in regards to
Mhm.
Ronald Reagan. So fairness.
And I don't know about you, but he was also talking about like what did he say? Right wing
Talk
media for the
radio.
last 40 years has been trying to tell everyone that politicians are crooks and whatever
Well,
and
I guess
whatnot.
let's take a pause and talk about that before we even get to the fairness doctrine stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
have you been like exposed to that
that's
or
that's
around that?
kind of where I was getting with that. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, I was
yeah,
like, yeah, the I still hear it, like the phrase "don't trust a politician," or you hear
yeah,
those jokes about politicians about like essentially it comes down to them just being liars and crooks and thieves or whatnot.
yeah. I mean, absolutely. I hear that all the time. I know. Like so one of the local radio stations that we have down here that I watch Reds game or listen to Reds games on all the time is 700 WLW, and they're a notorious right-wing talk show. Like I mean it's the stuff that I have heard off of talk radio off of 700 WLW would make Fox News blush. Like that's yeah. Um but yeah, I think it's interesting because he was talking about the fact that a lot of rural America has been exposed to this stuff for
Mm.
decades. And even me, I knew when I was growing up, I had a general distrust for the government, like, all of the big government won't take care of you, this, that, and the other. Like I remembered hearing that, like growing up and going through high school and thinking like, oh yeah, you can never trust a politician. And
Yep,
to an extent, to
I
an
thought that
extent,
too. I'm not in
I s-
rural America though.
right, yeah, you're in suburban Cleveland growing up, right?
Well,
Or is it
a
suburban
city.
Akron?
There's two cities. I mean, it was in Canton, but like there's two cities on both sides where I grew up.
So Jake does not associate with Cleveland. That's what I'm gathering from that. Okay.
No, 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 no. I like Cleveland. Don't
Okay,
worry.
okay. Don't come for him. He likes
Yeah, don't
Cleveland.
come for
Got
me.
it. But yeah, I think that's just it's
But I
interesting
still heard it,
because
is what I'm saying. That was the
right.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because it permeated through, I'm sure, a lot of just that Midwestern Rust Belt type state
Hmm.
and demography. Because, that's the thing is that uh, Ohio has obviously voted red these last few elections. They obviously voted blue for Obama both times. But outside of that, I'm pretty sure Ohio's been fairly Republican for a while.
Yeah.
And I think that this probably leans
And if
into
they
that.
haven't, it's real close.
Right, exactly. I mean, Ohio was a swing state forever
Yeah.
until recently. Um, and I think that yeah, I think it's just, if this is true, and I'm sure we'll kind of get into this, like, so, the fairness doctrine, if it really was something that was in place that, mandated that these um, radio shows or these news broadcasting organizations had to give both sides of the story, and they got rid of it. I mean, I think that's a big problem that we could be running into right now.
Hey, real quick,
Yep.
I was just started reading the first line of that. The Federal Communications Council.
Okay.
Is that the same FCC that, as of either today or yesterday, uh, is impacted by the executive order that brings all of these independent uh, or government-run organizations like the SEC, the FCC, uh, basically under executive power? So basically, they have to report to. Don't remember the guy's name. Uh,
Oh, I don't
I
know.
heard about
Oh,
that earlier today.
uh,
Actually,
do you have like a link for that at all, or
yeah. Let me see
because
if I can find it.
Yeah, because this looks to be the same thing. The FCC. Yeah, as Eminem said, the FCC won't let me be. Yeah, the FCC. Yep.
Let's see.
I like their logo.
I will shoot you this link. He looks like he signed it yesterday, so I'm gonna pop this in the chat real quick. It's from NPR, but
Oh, NPR is National Public Radio. I mean, that is typically a very good and reliable source. Let's just check it out real quick. NPR, because we have the resources open to check it out. Kids say. Yep, National Public Radio. So there you go. They're not as left center biased as CNN, but they still are on the left side of things. But they have a high factuality report.
Yeah, I
So
was gonna say they're. I thought they were more left center.
yeah. Yep. Copy text. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. To copy this here, here, here. Also, if you, this is just a personal thing. If you go to like this main page and see all this stuff here, just go to Ground News. It's so much cleaner and so many, like so many fewer ads. Just again, they're not sponsoring this, but please, for your own
And
sanity, just go.
and if you hear something, you can look it up right off Ground News.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm pretty sure we could find this exact thing on Ground News if we wanted to.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so Trump claims expanded power over independent agencies. Executive order to give the president greater power over independent regulatory agencies. Okay. The CPSC. Yeah, so that's the one that he put Russell Vogt in charge of from Project 2025.
I'm
Yeah,
pretty
Russell
sure
Vogt.
that's the guy that all these now have to report to. So if you scroll down a little bit, he does mention the SEC, the FCC, the CFPB, basically
That's Project 20.
all of those
Yeah.
kinds of agencies.
Okay. There are no independent agencies. Congress may have viewed them as such. SEC, FCC, CFBP, the whole alphabet soup, but that's not something that the Constitution understands. There may be different strategies with each of them about how you dismantle them, but as an administration, the whole notion of an independent agency should be thrown out. Interesting.
That's yeah.
I'm sure that will be fought in court.
It already is, I believe. I believe there are already
Yeah.
states challenging that one.
Yeah, because like right here, references the 35 court decision Humphreys executive versus U.S. and its court decided the president cannot fire the head of an independent agency. Project 2025 chapter on that department. Yeah, so basically, they're arguing. That's really strange. They're arguing that it violates the separation of powers, but I think it in fact provides separation of power.
Can we
So
define independent agency for people that don't know?
Yes. So let's just look it up. What is a federal dependent? So right here, we'll just throw on Wikipedia for now. An independent agency or agencies that exist outside the federal executive departments. Those headed by so basically anything that doesn't have like a cabinet secretary. Like Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of this, that, and the other. But you can see here, like, so, yeah, the Security and Exchange Commission, the Federal Reserve. Oh, that's gonna be a spicy one. If that falls under this, that's gonna be interesting. Yeah, commodity futures. So basically, like, there's a lot of stock trading and stuff like that that goes on in these independent agencies. The FDIC is another one. That's a huge one. Basically, if you've got money in a bank, you are being protected by the FDIC if your bank goes bankrupt, up to $250,000 in cash. So
Yeah, it says right under there too, the degree to which the president has the power to use executive orders to set policy for independent executive agencies is disputed.
Yeah, so it's now I'd be curious to see the administration's view of its ability to direct independent agencies. Okay,
Yeah.
so American Action Forum. I have no idea what the bias of this is, but this looks to have been written during President Biden's term. Or no, this was President Trump's term. I take that back. President Trump's term in his last year in office. Um, escalates its ongoing feud with social media companies outside of its ramifications for social media speech legally control independent agencies. So I'm guessing this was also with the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, uh, to develop a report describing the complaints of politically motivated content moderation it receives.
So I guess with Project 2025,
Mhm.
what is the goal? What is the not just with this part, not the whole thing, because that's a different can of worms. But
Mm.
what is the goal with the FCC and the independent agencies?
So I think again it is kind of that centralizing power, like kind of giving the executive branch more control over what these independent agencies do. Because I think that's kind of what it boils down to. It's like, how independent are these independent agencies? Because I mean, I get it.
Right.
Like, you're the president of the United States. This is, you have won the election. You've got all of these, agencies and departments and stuff running around out there, and you want to make sure that you have control over them. Now, the argument is just how much control.
Much control. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because it's just like, if they're meant to do an independent job outside of the purview of the president, because basically they don't want the president to, influence their actions or inactions in a negative or like
Mm.
overly, like basically they just don't want the president to get too involved in it.
Right.
Um, then yeah, I mean, you can see why the president would want to kind of bring them in closer to him so he can have more control. But you can also see on the flip side why that could be a potentially slippery slope, because if he brings them in under ultimate control, then he can dismantle them, or he can kind of make them so they're
He can make
yeah,
them to what he wants them to be, basically.
right, yeah, he could clip their wings and make it so that they don't have the power that they previously had.
Yeah,
Same
basically,
thing too. Oh, good.
yeah, it's basically the way this reads is they, where previously they did not, any policies they were coming up with, that kind of stuff, they could just kind of do. This executive order, everything now has to go through Trump, basically. He has to approve everything. Now, realistically, that goes through the other Project 2025 guy, but
Russell
I
Howe.
would,
Yep.
yeah, I would say it's safe to say that anything they're doing that does not align with their agenda, Trump will hear about, which is kind of the whole goal of this. They don't get to just do things anymore without Trump's
Without running
approval.
it by him first.
Yeah.
First, yeah.
Right. And I think that you know, there's some like I said, there's some positives and negatives to that. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody complains that there's so much red tape in government. It takes government so long to do this stuff. I mean, if you make it so that they can't just do stuff willy-nilly, and like I mean, that obviously adds an extra layer to that, because you have to go get it approved by somebody else, and it could take some more time. But if they're just going out there and doing stuff willy-nilly, and something gets challenged by the court, then it gets held up for who knows how long. So
And
again, it's a
and to be
double-edged
clear,
sword.
he's not getting rid of he's not doing it to get rid of like the other checks and balances. He's just doing it to as an extra checks and balance to get it run by him as well.
Potentially, but that's the thing, is
Potentially.
that it falls on that slippery slope,
Okay.
because if he becomes the end all be all to the checks and balances, then he can just say there's no more checks and balances, they don't exist anymore. You
I
know what I
see.
mean?
I
Like,
see
if you
this.
give
I
someone
see the slippery slope now. Yeah.
yeah, if you give someone the ultimate power to decide if they live or die, then he can just say, like, well, you're dead. Like, and then
Or
there's
you live on
right,
the
or you live. Yeah,
converse.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. So I think that's the big concern, is that it is kind of centralizing power into one individual. this
Right.
case.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
But yeah, so it looks like
It just seems
and
like there's no real good way to go about it.
right. I mean,
It's
the main concerning language that I see is that, and it's in this quote here. So there may be different strategies with each one of them about how you dismantle them.
yeah,
The-
why are
it-
you straight dismantling them?
right. Like, is there going to be something to replace them? Is there going to be some other
Or
law that's
like
written?
a
Yeah.
restructure?
Right. Like, is this all going to be brought into one big agency that's overseen? Like, maybe there's, we've got the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary commerce. Like, is this going to be brought in under the Secretary of Communication? Just throwing it out there, right?
Okay.
Or Secretary of Securities, like, like that way it covers all the stocks and stuff like that. Because now that I could see that being done and that being a
Yeah.
reasonable thing to do. Um, but I'm afraid that that's not where they're coming from, just based upon their actions. That's my thing. It's like, words are one thing and what people put into quotes and sound bites are one thing, but if you see repeatedly their actions are showing you the alternative, then maybe it's time to stop taking them at their word. Just throwing that out there. That goes for anybody because, like, just to throw it out there, Democrats said for a long time that they were going to balance certain portions of the budget, or they were going to pass certain laws, or they were going to codify certain rights, and they never did it.
Yeah.
You know, and Republicans now with Project 2025 said that this wasn't going to happen, or this wasn't going to happen, or this wasn't going to happen, and now these same things are happening. So sound bites and quotes mean nothing if the actions don't properly reflect what they're saying.
Yeah.
So just want to
And
throw that out
this can all tie back to politicians are liars.
there. No, the talk shows were right.
The talk shows are right. Oh no. No, that was a joke.
But no, I think, I mean, that's a great point that you brought up, those Zachary. I mean, so it'll be really interesting to see um what kind of comes of that, because I know that he has put in a lot of individual. I mean, a lot of I think he hasn't had a single failed political appointment, has he, so far? I don't think.
Not that I know of.
Not that I
That
know
yeah.
of, but a lot of them. I mean, I know a lot of them are being challenged,
Yeah, yeah, a lot of
which
them are
is
being
kind of
challenged.
uncommon for.
I think the only nominations he had that technically didn't go through were the ones that like resigned themselves and decided to not go
Yeah.
forward with
Right.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that sounds right. And I know Mitch McConnell has been like one of the most outspoken against a lot of his like major nominations. I think he's voted against like 3 or 4 of them.
Oh wow,
Um,
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah, um, yeah. Kind of a bit late for him to be, talking about protesting some of Trump's choices, but you know, I guess he's kind of on his last days in office, so I guess if he doesn't want to show any loyalty, and I think he was quoted as saying that it's just like he was saying, like, as party leader, I didn't have the privilege of stepping out of line and criticizing people in the past. And now that he's not the party leader, he said he can act more freely or something like that. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but I'm sure there's the direct quote from him out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. But yeah, so back into the fairness doctrine here, which is what that gentleman was talking about in the video we were looking over. Fairness doctrine mandated broadcast networks devote time to contrasting views on issues of public importance. Um, so
So
basic,
fairness doctrine is saying that they want they mandated broadcast networks to do see both sides to broadcast both sides.
yeah, yeah. So like I'm trying to find something that would be um. So let's think of it this way. Um, let's just say there's an oil pipeline going through downtown Columbus, right? Left-wing news outlets are, uh, you know, saying that this is going to be a huge environmental disaster. Everything's going to, you're going to kill 16 endangered species and wipe them out of the Columbus region. Um, and then the right-wing news outlets are saying, like, this pipeline is going through downtown Columbus. It's going to completely revitalize the city. It's going to add, $16.2 billion to the economy over the next 10 years. And you've got those two conflicting sides, right? Well,
Mhm.
the right wing side has to talk about those 16 species that are getting eliminated, and the left wing side has to talk about the economic benefits.
Oh, I see how
Yeah,
it
they
works.
have to, then they have to talk about it, or else they can't cover the story.
Okay. I thought you
Yeah,
meant it
like
was one. I thought it read as one news outlet. It has to talk about both, not a left has to talk about right issues and right has to talk about left issues too.
yeah. So like back then, because this is right
I
here, it
did
says
not read
rooted
it
in the
like that.
media
That
world
makes
of
more sense.
yeah, because like 1949, you have NBC, ABC, CBS. Um, so yeah, right here could misuse their broadcast licenses to set a biased public agenda. So
Mm.
this was basically meant to combat that, and basically to say, hey, if you're going to be broadcasting this to the nation, you have to give them both sides. You have to explain to them, the left wing side and the right wing side for each of these stories, so that you
At,
can't
at
inherently bias people.
at what point though do you go, well, why not just cover the news in an unbiased manner?
Because there's three sides to every story: the left side, the right side, and the truth.
Uh
That's a quote. I don't know who said it, but I would love to take credit for that. But there's
yeah,
there's
you
three
can't.
sides to every story: the left, the right, and the truth. So that's why.
It's fair.
Yeah. And we would love for them to cover the truth, but sometimes that's not what gets us the best ratings. So
No,
um
it's historically does not give you the best
right,
Yeah, and you
exactly.
have to
I mean,
consider
look
like the owners of all these networks now. Obviously, I don't know who owned the networks back then, but now everything revolves around money. So all these the owners of the networks want to make sure they're bringing in as much money as they
as
can.
many people as possible. Yep.
I
So
don't think that's a
wherever
new concept though.
But it's
it's
more
more
prevalent now.
prevalent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you're right, definitely not a new concept. I mean, there were I mean, Carnegie was a good example because once he died, he donated all of his money to charity. But I mean, you had Rockefeller, you had Ford, you had all these individuals who were money titans of their time. But yeah, now it's just more prevalent. I mean, now the people
That's
who
fair.
have the money are in your face and everywhere at all times. So
Because yeah, I guess that makes sense.
mm.
Because of social media, because of all the media.
Well, I mean, and just think of it this way: if you're, I mean, back, so I mean, this is kind of going off on a little tangent here, but think of it back in 1926. If you're Rockefeller and you're trying to convince a bunch of politicians and their constituents that you putting an oil derrick in downtown San Antonio is a good idea because give X Y reason, you'd have to take the train, and meet these people in person, like the lobbyists and then the congressmen in person, and then you'd have to then write newspaper articles and have those newspaper articles mailed out to people. Sometimes people didn't
Mm,
have any, obviously there wasn't TVs back then, so there
right.
wasn't a way to easily disseminate this information, and like it was a slow grinding process. Now, if you're insert random billionaire here, you can literally just buy $100 million worth of social media ads, TV ads, newspaper ads, and just bombard whoever you want with whatever opinion you want in an instant. It's totally different with the advent of just modern day technology and media consumption.
Yeah,
Totally different. Yeah.
that's fair.
Yep. Um, but yeah, so fairness doctrine mandated broadcast networks to vote, contrasting views. Congress backed the policy in 74, and by the 70s, or 54, sorry, and by the 70s, the FCC the doctrine the single most important requirement of operation in the public interest. I mean, those are pretty powerful words, and the fact that this had been kind of the law of the land going up until, I mean, it's right here, 85. So, I mean, let's read through this here. This is a Supreme Court case. So, the Supreme Court so this was challenged in 1969 with Red Line Broadcasting. Fred Cook sued Pennsylvania chair Christian radio. Fred Cook sued Christian Crusade radio program after the radio host attacked him on air, and in a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court upheld Cook's right to an on-air response under the Fairness Doctrine.
I was gonna say that sounds
Interesting.
familiar. Yeah.
But that's an incredible concept. That's an incredible concept though, because think of it this way. Um, I'm a radio talk show host, and I say, Jake has a bad taste in headphones, and you take extreme personal offense to that, and you say that it degrades your character. According to the Fairness Doctrine, you are now allowed to come onto my talk show host or my talk show and defend yourself against my claims. That's crazy. I mean, I think that's great, but I think that's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
that's cool. Yeah.
that's crazy. Like, but I mean, but again, with the way the world is now, right? Think of the way the
Mhm.
world is. Let's
Yeah,
just
now
say,
it's whoever can throw the money at the well, I'm looking at campaign ads.
well,
Who
that
can
goes into
throw the money?
Citizens United. That's a
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
nother can of worms.
Right.
But I'm thinking of, like, let's say Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan's
Oh yeah.
podcast, obviously
Mhm.
huge podcast, and he comes out with episodes every single week. And let's just say he starts talking about, let's say he talks about Donald Trump in one, he talks about Anthony Fauci in another, he talks about well, he said I was going to say Rush Limbaugh, but he's dead. He talks about Sean Hannity, and he talks about Don Lemon, and he makes claims against each one of those people in one episode. Like, does that give them the capacity, like, under this old doctrine, the capacity to just, like, force that they have to come on his show in order to defend themselves if they choose, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept. That's
I
a
mean,
very interesting concept.
g- it- now
And
it would
if I
be
think
like
I'm
they would make
understanding it
their
right,
own. Now they would make their own podcast and just refute them without any like debate. They would just say their piece and move on,
right?
but or whatever. But with that, it gives them like a second option almost, like in today's world, to get back on that show and be like, hey, wait a minute,
Hmm.
I can argue with you.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, I wonder, like, is it an argument, or does the person just have unfettered access to,
Oh,
like,
just
state to
free.
state their claim, like,
Oh
just,
yeah,
yeah, to totally give their side of the story. I
yeah.
like that's yeah. So so yeah, the doctrine stayed in effect and was enforced until the Reagan administration. In 1985, under FCC Chairman S. Fowler, a communications attorney who served on Ronald Reagan's presidential campaign staff in 76 and 80, released a report stating that the doctrine hurt the public interest and violated free speech rights guaranteed by the First Amendment. Now,
Wait,
and I was kind of questioning this source, but this is from Ronald Reagan's, like, official presidential library. So that's very strange, because like, you're still covering the story. You're still able to,
it is it is
like,
it is it violating free speech because or quote unquote violating free speech
yeah.
because you're not presenting it in the way you want to.
But that's the thing, is that you just have to, you can present it in the way you want to. If I'm reading this correctly, you can present it in the way you want to.
But then
You
you
just
have
also have to present the other side
in a way you in but you
a
don't
way
want
that you,
to.
yeah, and you don't want to. So I get where they're coming from, but
Yeah.
you're totally still allowed your free speech,
To I I can see where they're coming from though because
because
they're
you're still being forced to have to
to
give the other
have
side.
yeah, to give that opinion that you may not want to talk about.
Right. But
Yeah.
that's the thing, is that, it's one of those, it's the same thing that goes on with the gun debate today. Like, are we in a modern society, and I'm not making this claim for or against right now. I just want that to be very clear. But are we in a modern society in the year 2025, are we still going to take each amendment literally as it was written in the Constitution in 1776? I mean, we're,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
you could argue both sides to that though too.
absolutely, and that's where
Because
this comes in, I
do you
think.
follow the Constitution, or do
Mhm.
you loosely follow it because it's so I wouldn't say it is outdated, but like it was written so long ago is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
When the times were clearly different.
Um, wow, and so Reagan went through extreme measures to get rid of this. This is this is crazy. So I kept reading this. So, the FCC released a report stating that it hurt the public interest and violated free speech rights guaranteed by the First Amendment. That was Mark Fowler. That was Reagan's campaign staff guy. Fowler began rolling the application of the doctrine back during his second term, despite complaints from some in his administration that it was all that kept broadcast journalists from thoroughly lambasting Reagan's policies on the air. So let's just say the CNN of the day, thoroughly like the way that they dog on Trump every day. They couldn't have done that back in the 80s. Same thing with Fox News. Every time that Biden did something, they couldn't have done that back in the 80s before this was repealed. But the FCC panel under new chairman, Dennis Patrick, repealed the doctrine 4-0. Now, this is what I read, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. So this was opposed by Congress, who said the FCC had tried to flout the will of Congress, because Congress approved this all the way back in 1954. And yeah, it was wrong-headed, misguided, and illogical. And basically, Congress attempted to beat them to this decision, and they tried to codify this into law in the Fairness of Broadcasting Act in 1987, and it passed but was vetoed
By
by Ronald
Reagan.
Reagan. Yeah. And they were unable to muster enough votes to overturn the veto.
I wonder why. Was he just upset that he was getting slandered? Or not
Well,
slandered,
no,
but like
I think that's the thing, is like he wasn't like so that's right here. So they said,
complaints.
yeah, despite complaints from some in the administration that it was all that kept broadcast journalists from lambasting him. So basically, they were saying like, dude, this is protecting you. Stop. Like, don't do this. And he still went ahead and did
But
it.
I want to know why.
Right? That's like, I read that and my first thought was like, why was he so against this?
Yeah.
Like I, right? If we could walk in the footsteps of a dead man, what was his thought process here? I like
He
that was yeah.
he must have really thought it violated free speech.
Or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
because yeah, I have no idea what his rationale was for that, especially if he had people internally, like, because obviously he was on the decline. He was kind of in the
Or
same situation that Biden was at the end of his term. He was in mental
or
decline and all of
right.
that.
But also
Yep.
he saw it as an economic opportunity where you get rid of you get rid of both one side telling both arguments, and that opens the door for different media companies to
Like Fox News was founded in 96.
96.
When was CNN founded? 1980. So
1980.
CNN was before, Fox News
Yeah.
was after.
Hmm.
I'm trying to see like major. Oh my God, I can't even type. Major news. Let's see here. Oh
Yeah.
God. uh, where are we at? Oh, these are religious. Okay. Is there more, or is it just religious ones? It's just religious ones. Okay.
We got about 10 minutes
10
left.
minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Um.
You want to get back to the
But yeah,
video
like
or
yeah, I say let's go back to the video. I think that
I think we should probably just watch the video through and then talk about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we are not going to get through it.
I agree. This is kind of like the executive orders one.
There's just so
Yeah.
many things you can go down and like
Right, so many rabbit
speculate
holes, right?
over. Yeah.
Yeah. But
The
yeah,
fairness
feel
doctrine
free to give it a
eliminated.
play,
He
Zachary.
had it taken out of the books. And there was a specific reason for that. It was designed so that organizations like Fox News and right-wing talk radio could start spreading the lie that all mainstream media was bad. Now, this was during the time of Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, all the other news heads that we had out there that were highly respected. But it was a strategy to make it so that the airwaves no longer had to present an unbiased case. And then these right-wing media sources like Rush Limbaugh and Fox News, etc., began pouring it on to rural America. You can't trust politicians. You can't trust the news. And what they did is they focused on destroying the trust in these institutions so that they could replace it with another institution. And they did that. They replaced it with Fox News. They replaced it with right-wing talk radio. And I can't tell you how many times when I was growing up, when I was your age, I'd walk into a job site or be on a farm and I would hear right-wing talk radio blaring on the radio all day long. And then after they had destroyed our faith in media institutions in rural America, they then turned their guns toward the government itself. And they began building in us a distrust of government organizations. And Skylar, here's the facts, okay? You can look this up on your own, but these are the facts. Rural America uses more welfare than the blue cities do. Rural America needs more help feeding our children. We need more help keeping our hospitals open. And guys like you and I, farmers out there that grow row crops or do agroforestry or raise cattle, we take welfare too. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with that because we can't control the cost of our inputs. We can't control the cost of what we sell our products for. We got to pay for shipping both ways, as Kennedy said. But the reality of the situation is they were able to instill in us the idea that the government money coming to us was okay and was a good thing, but the government money going everywhere else was a scam or a sham or communistic or socialistic, etc. So it reached a fever pitch finally where a lot of rural people, over 70% of rural farmers and ranchers, only believe the Fox Newses and the talk radio. And when they came to you and told you that Trump wasn't going to implement Project 2025 and that he didn't have anything to do with it, you believe that. And you're not alone. All I'm here to tell you is that you were lied to. I'm not asking you to admit you were wrong. I'm not telling you you effed around and found out, because I don't want to see you lose your farm. And if there's anything I can do to help you not lose your farm, I'd be happy to do it. But in the distrust that you built up for government over time, and due to the fact that you didn't think mainstream media was reliable anymore, and you began listening to the news sources that tried to convince you every day that Project 2025 was not a Trump deal, even though many, many people on his campaign worked for Project 2025, they put it together, they helped write it. There was an entire section on agriculture. And in that section on agriculture, they specifically say they're going to cut out programs like this. Then they're going to cut out crop insurance. And Donald Trump is on record, my friend. And Skylar, look this up. Don't take anything I'm telling you at face value. You look it up. That's the difference between me and a lot of people on here. Check what I've said. Make sure I'm not lying to you. But Donald Trump is on record saying that corporate farming is better than small family farms and ranches. And Skylar, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to corporatize agriculture. And I'm not talking about when you and I go out and put together an LLC so that we can get the tax benefits and the protections from liability that come with that. I'm talking about big ag corporations and Wall Street buying up family farms and ranches as they go out of business so that they can turn it into just another investment. In the last 10 years, we've broken every single record in regard to the number of farms and ranches being bought up by investment companies in the United States. And I'd be happy to share all of that data with you. But my friend, I think the worst thing that they did to us in rural America is they convinced us somehow to place the culture wars over our own well-being. And what do I mean by that? Brother, when I was young, you didn't care what anybody did in their bedroom. Gay, lesbian, trans, whatever. That was their life. And the only way the law changed was just to say that you can't discriminate against those people when you're hiring, and you can't commit acts of hate against them because they're different than you and I as heterosexual white men. That's all the law did. And Skylar, did you know that the Southern Baptist Convention, and I was a Southern Baptist for a long time, do you know that the Southern Baptist Convention had its own clauses in their charter that said that abortion was okay in the event that it saved the life of the mother or the child might be deformed? But it was political hacks in the religious Christian movement that came in and politicized the abortion topic in order to get folks like you and I in rural America to turn against it. So I'm not here to tell you FO, brother. I know how hard you work every day, and I know what you're trying to do for your family because I'm doing the same thing. And you may listen to what I have to say, and you may just think this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But I hope you'll listen to it with an open mind, and I hope you'll double check and research what I've told you. Because the truth of the matter is we've been lied to. So at this stage, I'm not even asking you to say you were wrong. I'm just asking you to admit that you were lied to. Trump was forwarding Project 2025. He just hired the guy to oversee cost and contracts in the federal government that wrote Project 2025. We were lied to, my friend. And nobody's going to judge you if you just admit that you were lied to and you made decisions based on the fact that you thought these contracts were going to be kept and that you were lied to. And then the next step is get involved with us to fight back. It doesn't make you a Democrat. It doesn't make you a turncoat. It just means you see wrong when it occurs and you fight back against it. Anyway, I hope that makes sense, and have a great day.
All right.
All right.
Well,
I like how just the overall thought I had. I think bringing this view, like how he did, is very beneficial, whether you agree or not. I
mhm,
think the way he presented it, instead of flat out telling someone they're wrong,
right.
is is good.
No, I agree. I think that I think that he was a little bit like overzealous and bold in some of his claims, and
Yeah,
like because
yeah,
like when he was talking about it, like I kind of was looking through some of it in the background, and I think that he's correct in some avenues and incorrect
and
in some
wrong.
other ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I
I
think that
figured
the
he was
over
going to be, but like he said,
yeah,
look it up. Do
right, exactly. Research it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying like if you think I'm wrong, look it up yourself
yeah, and
because
he's
I
like he
think
wants the discussion.
yeah, and I think that he kind of made a good point at the very end. He's just like, if you're being screwed, he said it doesn't need to be a left or a right debate. It because that's the thing is your political allegiance means nothing if you're still getting screwed. I mean, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It doesn't matter if like
I mean,
you agree or disagree with certain policies.
that's why you get out and vote. That's why you get out and vote anyway. You vote
But
to
that's you vote with an educated
hated my
perspective though.
right. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
You
no,
vote. You
I'm not
vote.
saying you're not. Yeah,
You vote for you vote for yourself for things to suck a little bit less.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, you should when it comes to voting, like you should be voting in your own self interest to an extent, because
Mhm.
obviously there's other folks too. Like he was talking about the LGBTQ communities, like obviously, they're getting targeted pretty heavily under this administration.
Right.
So it's like you have to balance that. But yeah, it's like if you're getting screwed, like and he's also saying too that it's like back in the day, nobody cared. They just want to make sure that you didn't discriminate them when they wanted a job. It's like
Right.
I don't get the
That's what the law was
fascination.
for. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I don't get the fascination that is going on with that debate right now. I mean, we're
I
all
don't
Americans,
either.
we're all humans. Can we just chill the hell out? for a little bit, that'd be great.
Right. Mind your business.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think I know we're running out of time here, but I just kind of wanted to bring up because I know he was talking about the welfare um like proportions in the United States, and like this is from Snap in 2022, and I think I've got like one other one I wanted to look at. Yeah, I mean you can see like New Mexico is a blue state, Louisiana is a red state, West Virginia is a red state, Oklahoma is a red state, Oregon's a blue state, Illinois is a blue state, Alabama's a red state, Massachusetts is a blue state, Nevada's a toss up, North Carolina is leaning red state. So I mean, there was just slightly more red than blue in that statement. And again, like this is just the top 10, so this isn't a representation of all 50. But there's also no, which one was it? 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 I think it was this one. This one. Yeah. So this here, so this coast, this the title is obviously saying coastal states spend the most on welfare per capita. um but you can see like obviously California, New York, Massachusetts are all up there. But you can see like other blue states in here. Louisiana's high, Arkansas's high, obviously New Mexico's high, Minnesota's high. So I mean there's a pretty even distribution here. um but I mean, you can tell that a lot of the southern states, like you can see, state and local welfare spending as a share of total spending. Um, Obviously, bigger bullseye in the South and more of like these rural states. I mean, you can see West Virginia's up there, Kentucky's up there, Arkansas, Louisiana. Um, Obviously, I don't know what they're doing in Connecticut, but they must be doing something right because if you notice, there's nothing there. But I just think that's very interesting because the and as somebody who specializes in geography, not all nationwide policies are felt equally throughout the United States. That's the thing
Mhm.
is if all the federal funding was to be cut from all of these states, from every single one, Republican and Democrat alike, you can see which states would be hit the hardest. And like, Wyoming's going to be fine if that were to happen. Connecticut would be fine. Kentucky, West Virginia, Arkansas, Louisiana, they'd be devastated. Massachusetts honestly would probably be devastated. I mean, 26% of your total welfare spending, uh, you know, just, I mean, that's a big chunk. So just food for thought. But yeah, any closing thoughts, Jake, Zach, before we wrap up this episode?
No, I think I think we. I mean, we could go. We could always go into a ton more detail on this if you like. Also, if you like this style of episode, just let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting perspective and definitely like a bit different than what we've done in the past. So I liked it, and I think, uh, honestly, if we had the time for more long form stuff and you guys were interested in it, then we could definitely do that.
Mm, for sure.
Kind of like what we did with the election. Any thoughts, Zachary? Because I've got one last thing to
Have
talk
at
about.
it, Chief.
All right. Hey guys, so if you're interested in doom scrolling, um, NASA monitors city killer asteroid with 3.1% chance of Earth impact in 2032. Yeah, so that's a thing.
I heard about that.
And yeah, it is currently heading away from us now. Actually, I think if you look at this photo here, like kind of where I'm circling with my cursor, that's kind of where it is. So it's moving away from us now, and either that or it's somewhere in this range. But it has started you know the departure from us, and eventually it'll get to the point where we can't see it anymore, and we're gonna have to wait until it circles back around and starts heading back towards us before we can get more data. Now, just some information. Uh, the the area in which it's going to hit is pretty much anywhere from Rio de Janeiro to like eastern India. So like Brazil, eastern Brazil, all the way to eastern India is like the path that it could impact on. But it's in the thin, narrow band along that trajectory. Um, so,
What
uh,
what what could be the what would the devastation be like if it hit?
it depends on a lot of things, but it's anywhere between 130 to 300 feet. Obviously, the bigger, the worse. And
Right.
it also comes down to what it's made of. So if it's made of just rock, just random minerals, things like that, rock, not like a huge iron ball, basically. If it's just made of rock, then it would probably enter the atmosphere and explode and shatter a lot of glass or create a huge sonic boom wherever it landed. If it blew up over the ocean in that regard, honestly, nothing. It'd be a nothing burger. But now, the worst case scenario, let's just talk about the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is that it is 300 feet wide. It's as wide as it can be, and it's made of pure metal, like whether it's iron, whether it's, some other form of like nickel, copper, some other type of metal, right? Um, and it comes into the atmosphere at like this angle, because right now, typically asteroids, like or meteorites, when you see them come through the sky, they're coming in like an angle like this. Like when you look at shooting stars, they're coming into Earth's atmosphere at an angle, which is why you see them streak across the sky. If you were to just see a point of light above you that just goes pew, like, and you just see like a flash of light and that's it, that means the meteorite went right for you. It was heading right towards you. So the main concern is that this thing if it's made of mostly metal and it's 300 feet wide, that its angle of entry into the atmosphere would be more direct. And if that were to be the case and it were to hit a city, it would level a city with the equivalent of 500 Hiroshima bombs.
Oh my
Um,
god.
so very, very spicy. Now the other concern is that if that type of meteorite hits the ocean, you're obviously going to generate tsunamis.
Tsunamis, yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of like a lesser concern. Um, because I mean, it would have to be the worst case scenario in order for there to be a substantial tsunami that would like really drastically impact a lot of places.
Okay.
But yeah, so very shortly it's going to disappear and we won't be able to observe it until 2028. Which will be 4 years before it comes and goes by the Earth. The only concerning thing that I see is that when we first started tracking it, it had a 1.3% chance to hit the Earth. Then it had a
3.1.
yeah, it had a 1.3, then it had a 2.4, now it's at a 3.1. So it's going do, 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 do.
Which, if you
Slowly
read
but surely.
that first point under common ground, it says that's fairly normal before we
Okay.
get more data and it starts to go back down.
Okay, good. Whew. See, this is why you look at ground news. Gives you more perspective. Hey, look at that. There's the word perspective.
It'll be unobservable till 2028, though. We got 3 years before we know
Well,
more.
yeah, exactly. We're gonna have 3 years to probably. I was gonna say to think about it, but let's just be honest. Nobody's gonna think about it until it comes back on. Yeah, until it comes back in the news 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, with that concludes this episode of the Neutral News Network. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Feel free to follow us on Facebook. We're there now too. And yeah, outside of that, shoot us some messages if there's any stories that you want us to cover. Give us other ideas on stuff that you want to see, things you want us to do. And with that, we will wish you a good evening and